Very interesting story. Maria understood every nuance of English conversations, the subtle jokes, the complex arguments, and the heartfelt confessions. Yet, when it was her turn to speak, a silent blockade would rise. Her mind raced with perfect sentences, but her tongue remained stubbornly tied, leaving her often frustrated, feeling like a perpetual bystander in lively discussions. This scenario felt all too familiar. This feeling, common among many language learners, gnawed at her confidence relentlessly. She could effortlessly read an entire novel, binge-watch an American series without subtitles, and grasp intricate academic lectures with ease. However, the chasm between comprehension and active verbal participation seemed like an unbridgeable canyon, a constant source of quiet despair and self-doubt. One quiet evening, after another missed opportunity to contribute, Maria made a firm decision. She realized that understanding English perfectly wasn't enough. The true joy lay in participating, in sharing her thoughts, her opinions, and her unique perspective. This resolution marked the true beginning of her transformative journey, a commitment to conquer her speaking fears. Her journey started by truly appreciating her existing strength, her excellent listening skills. Instead of viewing her inability to speak as a weakness, she reframed it as a foundation. Her strong comprehension was a superpower, a secret weapon that many beginners lacked. She just needed to learn how to bridge that crucial gap. Improving listening skills isn't merely about hearing words, it's about active engagement. It means listening for intonation, stress patterns, and the natural rhythm of speech. It involves recognizing common expressions and how people connect ideas smoothly. This deeper level of listening becomes invaluable later when you attempt to produce similar sounds and phrases yourself. Maria began by actively listening to various English podcasts, not just for content, but for the speaker's delivery. She chose shows about her hobbies, making the process enjoyable and sustainable. She paid attention to how they paused, emphasized words, and conveyed emotion through their voices. This deliberate practice sharpened her auditory perception immensely. She also immersed herself in TED Talks, focusing on the speaker's public speaking techniques. Beyond understanding the complex ideas, she analyzed how speakers structured their sentences, used transition words, and maintained audience engagement. This exposed her to formal and informal English, expanding her understanding of diverse communication styles significantly. Movies and TV series became more than entertainment, they were language labs. Instead of relying solely on subtitles, Maria tried watching scenes multiple times, first with English subtitles, then without, truly focusing on the spoken dialogue. She noticed slang, colloquialisms, and how native speakers naturally interacted in everyday situations. She meticulously observed how intonation changed meaning and how rhythm made sentences flow naturally. This attention to detail and listening skills proved invaluable. It wasn't just about individual words anymore, it was about the melody of the language, which is crucial for sounding natural and understandable when speaking. Different accents, from British to American, Australian to Canadian, became subjects of her study. She exposed herself to a wide variety of pronunciations, training her ear to adapt and comprehend diverse English speakers. This broadened her understanding and reduced the potential for confusion when encountering new voices. A powerful technique she discovered was shadowing. This involved listening to a native speaker and attempting to repeat what they said simultaneously, like an echo. It directly linked her strong listening skills to her budding speaking efforts, forcing her mouth to articulate sounds her ears had already processed. Shadowing helped her internalize pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation without the pressure of forming original thoughts. It was pure mimicry, a rehearsal for real conversations. It also built muscle memory in her mouth and tongue, essential for producing unfamiliar English sounds correctly and effortlessly over time. However, the biggest hurdle remained the fear of talking. That familiar internal block, a paralyzing self-consciousness, still threatened to sabotage her progress. It was a mental barrier, far more formidable than any grammatical rule or vocabulary word she had ever encountered during her learning journey. Perfectionism was a silent killer of her speaking aspirations. She constantly worried about making mistakes, about mispronouncing words, or about her grammar being imperfect. This obsession with flawlessness prevented her from even attempting to speak, keeping her trapped in her own silent world. Maria gradually learned that mistakes were not failures but stepping stones. Every misspoken word, every grammatical error, was a lesson in disguise. They provided immediate feedback, highlighting areas for improvement, and were an inevitable part of the language learning process for absolutely everyone. Taking the first step for talking felt monumental, but she started small. Very small. Her initial goal wasn't a fluent conversation, but simply uttering a few words, a greeting, or a simple question. It was about breaking the silence and getting her voice out there, no matter how brief. One crucial talking tip she embraced was self-talk. She began speaking to herself in English, narrating her daily activities aloud. I am making coffee, I am opening the window, I need to go to the grocery store now. This felt awkward at first, but incredibly liberating. The benefits of self-talk were immense. It allowed her to practice forming sentences, connecting words, and thinking directly in English without the pressure of an audience. It built confidence in her own voice, and she could experiment with different phrases without fear of judgment. She integrated self-talk into her daily routine. While showering, commuting, or cooking, her internal monologue shifted to English. This constant, low-stakes practice cemented new vocabulary and grammatical structures, making them feel more natural and accessible during real-time interactions later on. Describing actions aloud became a game. The cat is sleeping on the couch, I am stirring the soup, the rain is falling softly outside. This simple exercise helped her activate her vocabulary and build fluency in describing her immediate environment, which is often a starting point for conversations. She even started asking herself questions and answering them aloud. What should I eat for dinner tonight? Maybe pasta. Or perhaps a salad. Yes, a salad sounds healthy and refreshing. This simulated conversation helped her practice question-answer structures and express opinions spontaneously. A slightly more advanced step was recording herself speaking. Using her phone, she would record short monologues or read passages aloud. Listening back to her own voice, though initially uncomfortable, provided invaluable insights into her pronunciation and areas needing refinement. Listening to her own recordings was a brave act. She identified mispronounced words, awkward pauses, and repetitive phrases. This self-assessment, combined with her strong listening skills, allowed her to pinpoint specific areas for improvement, making her practice more targeted and effective. Finding a language partner became her next big move. She used online platforms to connect with native English speakers who were learning her language, creating a mutually beneficial exchange. This provided a safe, supportive environment for genuine, low-pressure conversations. Online communities, forums, and language exchange apps offered endless opportunities. She joined groups discussing her hobbies, where she could read and then contribute to discussions in English, often through voice notes or short video calls, gradually increasing her comfort level. Her first steps in actual conversation were simple greetings and basic exchanges. "Hi, how are you?" "I'm good, thanks." She focused on clear pronunciation and maintaining eye contact, celebrating every small interaction as a victory against her long-held speaking anxiety. Actively expanding her vocabulary went hand in hand with speaking practice. Whenever she learned a new word, she made a conscious effort to use it immediately in self-talk or with her language partner, solidifying its place in her active vocabulary. Using new words immediately, even if it felt clumsy at first, was vital. It transitioned vocabulary from passive recognition to active production. This practical application helped her remember words more effectively and integrate them naturally into her spoken English. She also spent time mimicking how people speak English, particularly native speakers. Not just their words, but their expressions, their tone, their speed. This wasn't about losing her own accent, but about understanding natural flow and intonation patterns that make speech comprehensible. Observing natural speech patterns became a fascinating study. She noticed how contractions were used, how words linked together, and how people used filler words like or like in casual conversation. This insight helped her sound less robotic and more authentic. Learning how people connect sentences and paragraphs naturally in spoken English was another revelation. It wasn't about formal essay structures, but about using conjunctions and transition phrases that create a smooth, coherent flow, making her arguments easier to follow. Incorporating common idioms and phrases into her speech gradually became a goal. Expressions like break a leg or piece of cake made her sound more natural and immersed in the language, understanding that language isn't just about literal meanings. She understood that, especially for practice, fluency should be prioritized over perfect grammar. Getting her ideas out, even with minor grammatical errors, was far more important than staying silent due to fear of imperfection. Communication was the primary objective. Obsessing over grammar perfection often slowed down her speech, making her sound hesitant and unnatural. She learned to embrace good enough grammar for daily conversations, trusting that accuracy would improve naturally with more speaking exposure and practice. Speaking English, she realized, was a physical skill as much as a mental one. It involved the muscles of her mouth, tongue, and throat. Just like learning to play an instrument, these muscles needed regular exercise and repetition to become agile and responsive. She practiced specific sounds and tongue twisters to train her mouth muscles. This focused phonetic practice helped her articulate challenging English sounds more clearly, reducing her foreign accent and making her more easily understood by others. Role-playing scenarios became a fun way to practice. She imagined herself in various situations, ordering food, asking for directions, giving a presentation, and practiced the dialogue aloud, preparing herself for real-life interactions without actual pressure. Simulating real conversations, even with herself, was incredibly effective. She would choose a topic, then argue both sides, or imagine a friend asking her questions and practice her responses. This built conversational stamina and confidence. Joining local English speaking clubs, if available, or online equivalent groups, provided a structured environment for practice. These groups offered themed discussions and opportunities to speak with diverse individuals, expanding her conversational horizons. Engaging in small talk, though seemingly trivial, proved crucial. Mastering simple greetings, asking about someone's day, or commenting on the weather built confidence for longer conversations. These interactions were low stakes but high impact. Overcoming shyness with strangers was a gradual process. She started with quick exchanges at coffee shops or during her commute, focusing on brief, polite interactions. Each successful micro-conversation chipped away at her anxiety and built resilience. The importance of consistent practice cannot be overstated. Speaking English wasn't a one-time event but a continuous journey. Regular, even short, bursts of practice were far more effective than sporadic, intense sessions. Consistency was her best friend. Even 5 minutes of focused English speaking practice each day made a significant difference. It kept the language fresh in her mind and ensured her mouth muscles remained accustomed to producing English sounds, preventing regression. Creating an English-rich environment at home also helped. Labeling objects in English, changing her phone language, and even thinking in English before translating, immersed her further, making the language a constant part of her daily existence. Thinking in English was the ultimate goal, a sign of true fluency. It eliminated the translation step, allowing her thoughts to flow directly into spoken words. This practice, initially challenging, became second nature with consistent effort. Why should you practice speaking? For the immense boost in confidence. Being able to articulate your thoughts and participate fully in conversations transforms your self-perception, empowering you in all aspects of life, not just language. Speaking practice opens up new opportunities. Networking, international travel, career advancements, and building genuine connections with people from diverse backgrounds all become possible when you can express yourself fluently in English. It allows for true immersion. Listening and reading are passive skills, speaking is active. It's the difference between observing a pool and diving in. Only by speaking do you truly engage with the language and its culture. Practicing speaking breaks down barriers, both internal and external. It dismantles the fear of judgment and connects you with a global community, fostering understanding and collaboration across linguistic divides, making the world feel smaller. Maria's journey taught her that the goal isn't flawless perfection, but confident communication. It's about progress, not perfection. The journey itself, with its ups and downs, was as enriching as the destination of speaking fluently. Celebrating small victories kept her motivated. Every successful interaction, every new phrase used correctly, every moment she expressed herself clearly, was a reason to acknowledge her progress and keep pushing forward, reinforcing positive habits. She learned to embrace the messy process. Speaking a new language isn't always elegant or perfect. There are stumbles, hesitations, and awkward moments, but these are all part of the beautiful, human journey of acquiring a new voice. Every single word she spoke, no matter how simple or imperfect, brought her closer to her goal. Each attempt was a valuable exercise, strengthening her linguistic muscles and increasing her comfort with expressing herself in English. Your unique voice matters. Don't try to sound like someone else. Embrace your accent, your personality, and your way of expressing thoughts. Authenticity in communication is far more engaging than trying to mimic someone perfectly. So, if you understand English but can't speak well, take that first step. Your strong listening skills are your foundation. Now, add practice, patience, and persistence, and watch as your silent understanding blossoms into confident, articulate speech. Just begin.